Hey watch friends, today we're going to take a look at a model that if you're familiar with the channel you've probably already seen before, and that's the Zelos Swordfish. Specifically we're going to be taking a look at the Swordfish 40, which actually we've already looked at the Swordfish 40 in the past here on the left. This is the teal stainless steel variant. The main focus today is going to be on this bronze version on the right, and this features, as you can see here, an all bronze bracelet. That being said, I debated, initially I didn't actually even pick this up. I bought it from a buddy, so I didn't get this directly from Zelos. But I got the opportunity to pick it up. I liked the patina that was forming, so I decided to go ahead and give it a shot. I wasn't planning on featuring it on the channel because we've reviewed the titanium 42, the stainless steel 42, the bronze 42, the SF40, so I didn't want to be too redundant with the content here. However, once I got this in hand and on wrist, I was impressed enough with it, as well as I noticed there's a lot more differences than I had initially thought. So I thought it'd be fun to take a quick look at this model in comparison to the original Swordfish 40, and then I have some comparables as well to look at some different green dowel variations and things along those lines. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into this, go through some of the basic specs in case you're unfamiliar with the Swordfish 40 model, which of course, as the name denotes, and you might expect, this is the 40mm version of the Swordfish. This was originally a 42mm watch, and I actually have one that we'll be taking a look at here. This is the original 42 bronze, and this is of course the teal colorway there. We'll look at this for comparison, see how those stack up and everything. But for overall specs, the bronze version is going to, as you would expect, this is going to mirror the stainless steel version. So specifically, you're looking at a 40mm case, you're looking at lug size of 20mm, so this will be strap change friendly. It does have a lug to lug of 42, and that's at the case itself. So right here, this does not include the male end links, and we'll talk about that a little more. As far as the thickness, this is still going to be the same 12 millimeters for thickness, and that does include this flat sapphire crystal with an inner AR. And then as far as the movement, this is still going to have an NH35. This one, unlike the original Swordfish models, even with the NH35, this does include the date window at the 6 o'clock position. That was a first for the SF40, but that has made it over to the bronze variant as well. As far as the case, as you can see here, it does have this CUSN 8, which is a marine grade bronze. It's consistent with the Zelos model lineup, if you're familiar with those. So with that, let's go ahead and get into some more of the actual specifics of this and some of the things that I wanted to focus on today, which really is getting into what's the same, what is different. As a whole, as you might expect, the model is very similar. It's going to be effectively, it is a Swordfish 40, so the same here, but in bronze. But that isn't to say that it's 100% exactly the same or a one-for-one. So let's go ahead and initially start looking at the dials. Right off the bat, you might notice this one on the left here does have an applied logo, whereas this one actually has a printed logo. So it's not just the coloration that changed there. This one, of course, does have more of a metallic polish, and then this you can see is a little more flat to match with that bronze. I think that was a good pick, and I think, especially with this colorway, I think it fits the theme well, but that is something that I noticed as a change there. Additionally, if you notice at the chapter ring perimeter, so this one actually fades out, and you can see just has those tick lines there. This one does not, to my eye, have a fume to it. It does appear to be consistent as far as the coloration. It does, though, as you can see, have a pronounced sunburst to it. And that's the same largely as is the case with this teal here. But you notice this teal in the outer perimeter, that actually has a loomed chapter ring. So that does have contrasting, so this in this case is a BGW9 with C3 loom otherwise for that, whereas this you can see just directly continues that dial. And that changes, as you can see here, where it does give a perception of a larger dial. So even though these are the same as far as specs, this one I do think wears a little larger as far as the overall appearance of it. And I kind of like the fact I've been drawn to this one. Not only do I think it blends cohesively in with this bronze, I think the white would have been too much and would have broken that up and made it a little more harsh looking. This, I think, just symmetrically, it just blends, it looks smooth, it looks gradated even without an actual fume applied to it. So I think that's a nice touch, and I've really liked this, as well as even the loom pattern. I appreciate that ring, but I will say, as time has gone on, I'm appreciating simplicity more, and this just has, of course, you still have the fancy pattern with your handset, but this has a little more of a clean and traditional type loom pattern for that. So that's an obvious difference there. Additionally, if you look at the 12, the 3, and the 9 o'clock, you'll notice continuing with that chapter ring, while that portion isn't loomed, this does have a perimeter around that with the white, whereas this, of course, just is a straight sandwich cut into the dial there to show that marker. And then speaking of loom, this one is actually going to be uniform C3 throughout, whereas this one is, as I mentioned, a mix of C3 as well as that BGW9. So you have the second hand as well as that chapter ring that glow in BGW9. And if you check out the SF40 video, the original stainless steel, you can see what that loom pattern looks like. This is the exact same, except cleaner. You're going to have, of course, all your markers are going to be the C3, which is that green glow to it, and then the same thing with the full handset, and then, of course, the bezel as well for that. So those are the main differences that you'll see in the actual watch head itself. What about the difference in material here? What kind of an impact did that have on overall weight? So size to my 6.5-inch wrist, I will say this one is coming in at around 147 grams, whereas this one does add about a little under 20 grams to it. So this is coming in at 163.7 grams. And let's go ahead and get an idea of what this one looks like on the wrist here. We've seen, of course, the stainless steel variant in the other video, and you can check that out if you'd like to see more. But here's how that looks as far as overall presence for that. Let's try not to bang those up. And I think it fits nicely. I really actually like the look. I wasn't sure how it was going to feel. I thought this might be too much of that rose gold. However, one of the things that I've noticed as far as a characteristic and that really sold me on this model is, for whatever reason, this bracelet, I don't think is a different composition, but it patinas extremely quickly. So there's something that's really going on with this, where it does, as you can see, it gets that nice iridescent purplish type of patina to the bronze, but this one really took a patina quickly, much more so than some of these other pieces. This one I've had much longer, and you can see, yeah, it has a patina to it, but nothing like that. And this was a much shorter period of time and less wear for that. So interesting to see as far as that overall characteristic with it. As far as the actual function and usage, this one you'll notice, so let's check out as far as the bezel on this one. Relatively light, pretty tactile for that, but overall a nice clean bezel action. I think I went one click too many there. It's so hard to do this on camera, but that's going to bother me. All right, so we got that back in place. Now let's listen to this one. You can hear that, it could be a one-off, but this one, it is a more stiff action. It's a much more pronounced click to it. This one, I would not say is too tight by any means. It's not seizing as can happen with bronze, so you want to turn that every now and then. But overall, I will say this is definitely a noticeably more stiff click in action on this one. I can't say I hugely prefer one or the other. I probably slightly prefer this bronze version of it, but really, like I said, it could just be the sample of one type situation. So the main thing, though, that I wanted to focus on is this overall for the bracelet. So as you can see, this is in fact an actual bronze bracelet. And what you'll notice here is you might be wondering how you keep from getting green on your skin, because if you're not familiar with bronze, it can get your skin stained green. This one, what they actually did is this is stainless steel on the inside, so it's not just a capped, it is actually a two-piece construction here, and this stainless steel nests inside of that, but it is actually a full bronze link there for the end, so not just an overall casing or shell or cap or plating that's on there, and that's why you're getting the patina and everything going on. That, of course, is very different than the construction on the original with the stainless steel here. So some of the things, though, with that is it wasn't just the change in materials, which I think that in and of itself, pretty innovative and pretty awesome to have that. So I like that aspect and that feature, and that's part of what made me intrigued by this, even though I didn't think it was going to be for me. As far as the actual construction, though, check out those end links. You can see here you have a very noticeable radius where that downturns at the end of the link, whereas this one is still squared off. So it does definitely have an end link difference. Both of them contour to the case well, but there is a difference in the actual shape. And that's not the only difference. If you then look at the links themselves, you can see this also has that chamfer cut all the way around on each of those, whereas again, this is going to be very squared off. So I do think the stainless steel has a little more of a polished look, a little more refined, a little more finished. So even though they are finishing-wise, it's going to be the same on these cases. The bracelet itself is actually machined differently. So that is something, not just the two-piece construction, it is actually a different shape to those, though of course the actual link profile is going to be very similar. I'm not sure if that was a limitation of the material or if that was to cut machining cost or what went into that, but that is something that I noted here. Additionally, the nature of the construction, you might have noticed, while these do both have screw links for them as far as for adjustment, this one only has screw links for the links that are meant to change. So your permanent links do not have screws. Whereas this one, because of that two-piece construction, the screws actually are what retains those two pieces together. So in addition to holding the full bracelet together, that's what keeps the two-piece construction. So this actually does have full screws all the way on the bracelet. Something else from a functional aspect is articulation. So with the nature of this being a little more squared off on the bronze, check out this articulation. And let's go to the 12 o'clock. This, I mean, really, really nice, very articulating, has a good amount of flex to that as well. Whereas you'll notice the articulation is not the same on this bronze. This, I don't know how well the camera is going to pick it up, but you can see this one has more rigidity. It still articulates well, don't get me wrong. It's just not the same kind of drape as the other. And additionally, the same thing for flexion. You can see not as much wiggle to that either. And one of the things that I noticed as a whole, like even take a look at this sitting down. You can see how flat this one sits, whereas look at how this one's sitting. So it isn't just a perception thing. There is actually a difference in articulation. And one of the things that I picked up on that was a difference between those is check out the actual construction here. So on the outside, this still looks like three-piece, and this is a true three-piece for the construction. But check out the inside of this bronze. Let's look at the stainless steel. As best I can tell, that appears to be completely one piece for the mill. And I suspect that that takes out just some of that flex and some of that articulation. So even though it is a traditional three-piece construction in that they don't individually articulate completely, as you can see here, that does come into play when you look at that wiggle. See how that can articulate there? Whereas this one doesn't have that. So that does give a difference in feel. This one still wears well. I will say though, this one wears a little better. It's a little more comfortable, and you do notice that difference in articulation. Additionally, the clasps. I'm not sure if this is just a limitation here as far as the material, but I noticed the clasps on this one, very easy to pop. That goes in very solidly, no problem whatsoever. This one, for whatever reason, check this out. Oh, there we go. Got it on the first try that time. More often than not, you push this shut and it snaps, but it will actually pop back open. So this one is a little harder to go, and of course, now that we're on camera, it's working every time here. But this one is a little harder. There we go. So that's pushed down, and you can see it still pops free. So this one, it just doesn't close quite as well. I thought it would break in more, and it perhaps has broken in some, but it is not quite as good of an action on the bronze as it is on the stainless steel. And then as far as the actual construction, so we already talked about the fact that this is bronze for the bracelet, it's stainless steel for the inside, so you don't get the green staining. This does still have just traditional micro adjustment on the clasp, so none of the toolless micro adjust like you have on some other models for this. The finishing here, you can see that there is a patina forming on because this is still bronze in the exterior here. But the bridge of this, because that's directly up against the skin, this is a plated stainless steel. So you can see there the stainless steel upside down for you. But you can see this is stainless steel, but they kept, for the look of it, they did keep that with a plating. So I'm assuming that's like a PVD or something like that for that, to give that bronze look to it. But those really are the main differences between the two. As far as price point wise, this one, while it did come with the bracelet standard, this one, the bracelet's actually an optional feature. So this, the watch itself, I believe, was coming in at around $300 at launch, and it did come with a Zelos Tropic strap with a bronze buckle. Then the bracelet was an extra about $200. So it wasn't an insubstantial upgrade. So total package, you're coming in around $500. Really, at the end of the day, I thought this one was just an insane value, and I still think that. I've looked at a lot of bargain watches, and really, I can't say that I've seen any that have beat this for overall value. The specs, the features, everything you get is just fantastic on the Swordfish 40. This came in originally around $270 on bracelet with a well-equipped spec package. This one coming in at around $300 or $500 with the bracelet. I still think for the innovation you're getting, for the overall characteristics, the total spec package, the overall finishing, across the board at $500, I still think it's a darn good package. It does, with an NH35, it goes more into Miyota territory, that kind of stuff out there. So I know that's not going to be for everybody, but I've got no complaints about the NH35. I think they're good movements across the board. All the things that I've said about this as far as the comfort, the overall characteristics of this in not necessarily wearing quite as well at the end of the day, it's still a comfortable watch. It still wears well on wrist. I still think it's good looking, and in fact, I actually probably like it a little more. We talked about the dial configuration. I like that overall. Value, I think, is solid. The innovation for this, I love the patina aspect of things. So across the board, in my opinion, this has been another home run. You know, I did want to touch on, like I said, just the differences between the two. And with that, let's go ahead and check out and see what this looks like next to some others. So we, in kind of wrapping up here, this gives you an idea if you want to see for color. So this one, as you can see, the bronze with not having the chapter ring, different accent, that is not new to this, but this gives you an idea for similar colorways, what that would look like as far as a difference there. Then checking it out against another Zelos bronze and green, this is what it looks like against this Mako. And as you can see, a different shade of green, plus of course the Fume presents very differently. Switching up brands, this is one that we'll be reviewing on the channel soon. This is the Wise Hitman. And this one, as you can see, again, the color is relatively similar, though they are shades different, but this Fume makes it present completely differently, as does the stainless steel case. This is another really head-to-head against the SF40 in many respects. Very different watches and executions, but as far as value proposition, both of them, I think, are just phenomenal values for this. So do stay tuned for that one. I think people are really going to like that Wise and what it has to offer. And then here is against, and it says Risa, but this is actually an RZE watches. This is the Resolute that we've looked at before. You can see this is much more flat, a sand texture, and in a darker, more of like an OD green for that. But that just gives you an idea for presentation. So if you have been on the fence about this, or were just curious about the differences between the SF40 variants, I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you did enjoy this, and you could please hit that like button, that's appreciated. But most importantly, if you haven't already and you want to help the channel, please do hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned, we're bringing new content all the time, and that is tremendously appreciated. Thanks for watching.